A new moon is rising.
Welcome to this Diana Ultimate Guide. This melee AP champion is a mix between an assassin and a fighter. Diana has potential to one-shot multiple enemies, yet enough consistent damage and tankiness to win those extended fights. Whether you're looking to dominate in 1v1s, dive deep into 5 enemy champions in teamfights, or split push your way to victory, Diana might just be the perfect champion for you. I've looked over the top statistic websites, observed the best pro and solo queue players, and then tested them myself to find the most optimal builds and playstyles, and all that information is included in this guide. The abilities section will quickly cover what her abilities do, then after each ability, I'll show you tips and tricks to give you an advantage in your next game. In builds, you'll find all the information on items and runes, as well as cheat sheets with all the information displayed on screen. The combos section will show you how to execute all optimal combos so you can potentially one-shot combo multiple enemies. Gameplay section includes valuable tips to play Diana at every single stage of the game. Additionally, I've even included mechanics, matchups, strengths and weaknesses, and even an other roles section where you can play Diana in 2 other roles. All this information is included in the description below with timestamps so you can find anything you need right now. After playing League for almost 7 years now and achieving Challenger for the first time in Season 8, I've become motivated to make these guides, focused on helping you improve and reach your rank goals for this season. I started at the lowest elo, Bronze 5, which was pretty much Iron 4 back then, so I know exactly what it's like to be in every elo. Whether you're aiming to get out of Iron or trying to grind your way into Diamond, these guides will help you get there. I've actually climbed to Diamond in every role with over 50 different champions, so I want to use that experience to help make your journey up the ladder as efficient and fun as possible. If you want to be part of this growing community and reach your highest potential, make sure to subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell. And if you're fully committed to making this your best season, join the channel and become a member. I'm planning on streaming soon, and members will have the first priority to any questions, advice, and replay evaluations. I will even add perks like voting priority, where members will have high priority over the next champion guide. Remember to focus on improvement, test your limits, and never give up. I'm Zeus, and let's get right into this Diana guide. Let's start with Diana's passive Moonsilver Blade. This has 2 parts. The first part, Diana just passively gains bonus percentage attack speed, increasing each level. This attack speed is then tripled for 3 seconds anytime Diana uses an ability. Wave clear, trades, taking towers and objectives, even synergy with items are great ways to utilize this passive. We'll be using this passive for optimal damage in combos later on. The second part is an enhanced basic attack. You need to stack this twice before activating the third empowered auto attack, dealing magic damage to the main target and cleaving any other nearby enemies. The AoE damage is great for wave clear, especially when you want to save mana. Just make sure to position to as close to as many minions as possible. Use the AoE cleave when enemy champions are bunched up. This does 50% increased damage against non-epic monsters, aka jungle camps, so use this to take them as fast as possible. The increased damage also applies to towers, making it useful to take towers much faster. Her Q, Crescent Strike, is a curved skill shot released from Diana's right arm. It will deal magic damage to all enemies it passes through, provide vision of enemies hit, and explode at the target location, dealing AoE damage and providing sight of the area. This can take a while to get used to, as it's a unique skill shot. This will be your only safe poke tool from range, and since it has a unique curved trajectory, it might take a while to get used to. The AoE from the arc and the explosion circle is a great way to wave clear. Make sure to cast it from Diana's left side and angle it so it hits as many minions as possible. Sometimes you want to do the opposite and you only want to aim for a single CS without pushing the wave, so you want to position more towards Diana's right side and angle it around minions. Although all this can depend on the minion wave at the time. Make sure to aim for as many enemies when they're bunched up for some nice AoE poke damage. Use the Q to check brushes. If it hits an enemy, you'll then have sight of them for 3 seconds. The small explosion circle will still give you about half a second of vision whether you hit an enemy or not. Enemies hit by this ability are afflicted by moonlight, and this has an important interaction with her E, which I'll cover soon. Her W, Pale Cascade. Diana activates an initial shield as well as 3 spheres that orbit her for 5 seconds. These spheres will detonate on enemy contact, dealing magic damage to the main target and any nearby enemies. If all 3 spears detonate, Diana's shield is reapplied, which can stack with the initial shield and refreshes the 5-second duration. Another great way to wave clear using the sphere AoE damage. The shield scales with AP and bonus HP, so even if you purchase offensive items with high AP, this will increase your tankiness too. As a melee champion, walking up to last hit minions means you're vulnerable to ranged abilities and auto attacks. Use this occasionally to absorb damage and safely farm. Her E, Lunar Rush, allows Diana to dash to the target location, dealing magic damage once she reaches the target. If targets have been hit with Q and are afflicted by moonlight, this ability is reset and she is able to use it again. It has a high cooldown if you don't consume moonlight, around 20 seconds early game, so try not to ever waste this ability as it's your only escape and gap closing tool. It can be used on any enemy target, including jungle camps, so remember to use them for escapes and as additional dash targets to close even more distance towards your main target. And finally, her ultimate, Moonfall. Diana pulls in all enemies within range and reveals enemies within the ultimate radius. Once enemies have been pulled in, they are then slowed for 2 seconds. After 1 second, if there was at least one champion within range, Diana deals an initial amount of magic damage to all enemies within the area. This damage is increased per champion after the first. An amazing ultimate for 1v1s, skirmishes, and especially teamfights, aiming to hit as many enemies as possible in order to increase the damage. This has great synergy with all her abilities once enemies are pulled in. Her Q will be much easier to land on multiple stacked enemies. Her W sphere's AoE detonation will easily damage multiple enemies, and even her passive enhanced auto becomes easier to hit multiple enemies. Ability order. When it comes to leveling abilities, it is pretty much the same every game. Your Q is your bread and butter during laning phase, allowing you to safely poke the enemy, pick up any low CS, and wave clear with the AoE damage. Therefore, you want to level Q first to increase the damage and decrease the cooldown. It will also help you up for your E- combos. Your W should be leveled second as it increases the damage for each sphere and increases your shield strength, becoming a great safety tool to tank abilities and auto attacks, especially as a melee champion the mid lane. It will also be effective at wave clearing using the AoE from the spheres to push minion waves faster. And finally, you want to level your E last. Although it does increase in damage and reduce in cooldown each time you level this, both of these factors aren't significant enough. It will be your main gap closing tool to engage. However, if you land Q on a target, you'll be able to use E twice, so the cooldown won't be an issue. And just for clarity, you want to level your ultimate whenever it's available, which is at level 6, 11, and 16. There is currently one rune taken by most pro and solo queue players, and that's Electrocute. There are 2 other runes, although rarely taken, that deserve a mention, and that's Conqueror and Phase Rush. First, let's fully cover the Electrocute build, going over important minor runes. Then we'll move on to important information on items, shards, and summoner spells. Runes. By far the most optimal rune on Diana in this current meta is Electrocute. Hitting a champion with 3 separate attacks or abilities within 3 seconds deals bonus AP damage. This fits perfectly into Diana's hard trade and all-in burst playstyle. A simple QEW combo will instantly proc this damage, allowing you to win most trades in lane. The first minor rune you want to take is Sudden Impact for the increased lethality and magic penetration after you engage with E. Taste of Blood is a viable second option, especially if you want the extra sustain for the laning phase. The second minor rune is Eyeball Collection. you'll gain 2 AP per stack, and once you have 10 stacks, you'll gain an additional 10 AP. Although not as popular, Ghost Poro can be useful if you want some extra vision. The final minor rune from the Domination tree is quite flexible ever since the Ravenous Hunter nerf. Ravenous Hunter is still the most popular and seems optimal for the sustain it provides. Relentless Hunter is an optimal choice for utility as it provides out of combat movement speed. With a champion like Diana, all you need is to get within E range in order to engage, and this extra movement speed might make the difference. And the final minor rune choice, which is taken quite often, is Ultimate Hunter for the ability haste towards your ultimate. Having a few seconds cut off from your ultimate cooldown is great, but you will be sacrificing it for the HP sustain or movement speed from the previous runes. As for the second path, there are a few choices, but one in particular seems to be optimal. From Resolve, you'll want to take Shield Bash, which will provide extra armor and magic resist whenever Diana activates her W shield, as well as dealing extra damage on her next auto attack. The final minor rune is a close call between 2 runes. Bone Plating will reduce damage from the next 3 spells, after Diana has taken damage from a champion. This is best against champions that deal damage based on combos from multiple abilities, minimizing their burst damage. It does, however, have a 45-second cooldown. And the last option is Second Wind, which will heal Diana for a small amount over 10 seconds anytime she takes damage from a champion. This is best when you're dealing with poke champs who deal damage from one specific ranged ability. The main advantage compared to Bone Plating is that it has no cooldown. Sorcery is another popular option for the second path, especially if tankiness from Resolve isn't a priority. Mana Flow Ban for the mana sustain it provides, which might be useful as most of Diana's items don't come with any mana, and Transcendence for the extra ability haste, especially for the level 11 power spike where your basic abilities are reduced by 20% on champion takedowns, increasing your potential to snowball fights. Gathering Storm always seems to deserve a mention, as it will provide flat AP every 10 seconds, scaling well into late game. If you predict games will go beyond 30 minutes, it becomes a very strong choice. A less favourable second path option is Inspiration, with Biscuit Delivery for the sustain early game, and a close call between Magical Footwear, Cosmic Insight, and Time Warp Tonic. A final second path option, preferably taken when you have low laning threats, is Precision, taking Presence of Mind for the mana sustain, and Coup de Grace for the increased damage to enemies below 40% HP. Even Cutdown can be an optimal choice. As mentioned before, I would recommend Electrocute in 99% of games, but there are still 2 viable options worth mentioning. First, Conqueror. Auto attacks and spells grant 2 stacks of Conqueror for 6 seconds, gaining some AP per stack. This stacks up to 12 times, and when fully stacked, will heal Diana for 9% of the damage you deal to champions. This is incredibly effective in longer fights, and Diana has a great kit to quickly reach full stacks. Against certain tank matchups and enemy team comps, you might want to consider this rune as an option, as you'll be able to go for extended trades. You want to prioritize attack speed when purchasing items, as it will help you reach full Conqueror stacks faster. The last rune worth mentioning is Phase Rush. After 3 separate auto attacks or abilities, Diana gains a burst of movement speed as well as slow resistance. This might be effective against champions who rely on skill shots and slows, and you can essentially counter most of their potential with this rune. It will also allow Diana to stick to targets in general, helping you output damage through auto attacks. However, ever since the introduction of the new item, Night Harvester, which provides a burst of movement speed when Diana lands an ability, it has made this rune a little redundant. I would recommend this rune only if slow resistance is something you want to prioritize. Items. For starting items, you want to take Doran's Ring and 2 HP pots. The ring should sustain most of your mana through early laning phase, and the 2 HP pots will provide healing against any trades in poke until your first back. I would rarely recommend any other start. A few first back options worth considering. The Dark Seal is a great early back for these stats and potential to snowball with stacks of AP per enemy takedown. Boots will be effective to dodge against heavy skill shot champions. As for epic items, aka components, there'll be one main item you'll want to buy for your first power spike, and that's the Hextech Alternator. Damaging a champion will activate some extra damage from this item's passive, increasing your chances to one-shot some squishies, or at least deal some extra poke damage with your Q. Kindle Gem is another option to consider if you're looking for tankier options. Seeker's Armguard was a once first priority buy against AD mids, but since the nerf, it has fallen slightly out of favour. Stopwatch can be an option early if an important fight is coming up, otherwise stick to buying this once you finish your first mythic. You might want to consider an early Oblivion Orb against heavy healing comps. The main mythic we'll be purchasing in most games is Night Harvester. Providing AP, HP and ability haste, it contains the basic stats Diana needs. The Soul Rend passive is what really helps Diana cover her slight mobility weakness, whether you need the movement speed to catch up to enemies once you land your Q, stick to enemies while consistently dealing damage from auto attacks, or simply get away. And it's also worth noting that damaging a new champion will extend the duration of the movement speed bonus. The bonus AP damage increases your burst potential, synergizing perfectly with her playstyle. Another important note to remember is that the bonus damage cooldown applies to each individual champion, meaning you can potentially activate the bonus damage 5 times in one teamfight. And the mythic passive provides 5 ability haste per legendary item, which is also useful for Diana's kit. Another mythic worth considering is Hextech Rocketbelt. It has similar stats to Night Harvester with an additional 50 HP. The active is what you really want to consider, with the dash to close distance or escape, as well as the long range bolts that deal the same bonus damage as Night Harvester's Soul Rend passive. It may seem like a close call, but Night Harvester really excels when you take teamfights into account, as you'll have way more damage and mobility overall. Another difference is that the bonus movement speed from Rocketbelt only applies when walking towards enemies, whereas Night Harvester provides the movement speed regardless. The final difference lies in the mythic passive, which provides 5 magic penetration per legendary compared to Night Harvester's 5 ability haste. It's hard to sacrifice all of Night Harvester's teamfighting advantages, but if you really want the Rocketbelt dash, let's say you want to counter enemy dashes, it's a viable choice. I want to quickly mention Everfrost and Ludens. You can use the Everfrost active if you're after some AoE lockdown. Ludens provides some nice poke to additional targets as well as the movement speed. Both items provide mana, however, with careful management of Diana's abilities, which are all relatively low mana cost, you'll mostly avoid mana issues altogether. Riftmaker does deserve a mention as the final mythic option, but I would only recommend this with Conqueror. As for boot choices, you'll almost always want to purchase Sorcerer's shoes for the magic penetration. Amazing at early stages of the game while most players haven't picked up any magic resistance. Mercury treads are a defensive viable choice if you're dealing with 3 or more AP threats, or perhaps they have plenty of CC, in which case tenacity becomes a priority. When it comes to plated steel caps, you can always purchase Zhonya's as an AD counter, but if there is the rare full AD enemy team comp, these will be an efficient option. If you're ever after an efficient budget buy, pick up Ionian boots as it provides the useful ability haste stat. Moving on to legendary items, the cheapest legendary item in the game that builds on from the Dark Seal mentioned earlier is Magi's Soul Stealer. This has become a much safer choice in Season 11, specifically because it counts as a legendary, meaning you will obtain the bonus mythic stats for only 1,650 gold. By the way, this item becomes goal efficient at around 7 or more stacks. If you have stacks on Dark Seal early, then this will be helpful to snowball. Consider Magi's if the conditions are right, aka you're snowballing a lead and confident you can get kills and there's low chances of dying. You should sell this late game if you lose stacks and can afford another legendary item, otherwise keep it at full stacks. Zhonya's Hourglass. Not only does this item have a convenient build path with the already mentioned Seeker's Armguard and Stopwatch, it's extremely affordable and counters so many champions, not just AD champs. It synergizes so well with Diana's playstyle, as once you've E-dashed in and used all your abilities, you'll find yourself in the middle of the enemy team, which will then be able to activate the Zhonya stasis for 2 seconds of invulnerability. There's a few interactions worth mentioning, and I've added it in the combos section. I found myself building this item second in most games, simply because of the playmaking potential, but it can be bought anytime you feel it's necessary, sometimes even before you finish your mythic. Lich Bane. Considering Diana outputs plenty of damage from auto attacks, this synergizes perfectly with her playstyle. Apart from bursting champs, it's an amazing item to split push and take towers. The movement speed also synergizes well, helping you stick to your enemy. Morello Nomicon. As mentioned earlier in Oblivion Orb, this will be necessary against heavy healing team comps. You may need to prioritize other items, so you can just complete this item later on, as Oblivion Orb already provides the important healing reduction passive. Void Staff. This will be the number one choice to counter magic resist. Although usually bought as the 5th or final item, don't hesitate to buy this earlier if you do notice enemies buying magic resistance. Many high elo players actually consider this as a 2nd or 3rd buy, regardless of how the enemy team is building, perhaps for the cheaper price, the earlier power spike, and you'll also get the extra stats from the mythic passive. Rabadon's Death Cap, the ultimate late game item for AP champions. Once completed, it will provide a massive power spike, increasing all your AP by 35%. However, it comes at a hefty cost of 3,600 gold. If you're against 3 to 4 squishy champions and find yourself snowballing, you can even build this second. Diana is one of the few champs who can benefit defensively from the high AP, as it increases your shield strength of W. Nash's Tooth. This has some high potential on Diana as long as you can consistently auto attack enemies. Considering she already auto attacks quite heavily in her combos, she'll make use of the extra damage on auto attacks quite well. This synergizes well with the split pushing strategy, and I'll mention tips in the gameplay section. Horizon Focus. The Hypershot passive activates anytime you land Q from long range or immobilize enemies with your ultimate pull-in CC, amplifying your damage. The massive flat AP this provides will help you one-shot many squishies. A final way to activate this is with the Everfrost active. Banshee's Veil. A solid defensive item against AP and CC threats with an extremely useful spell shield that blocks the next enemy ability, which against certain threats could be the difference between winning and losing a teamfight. Demonic Embrace. A damage over time item anytime you land abilities. This is great to purchase anytime the enemy team has 3 or more tanks. It can even help Diana gain some tankiness, providing her with flat HP and stacking armor and magic resist, increasing with each enemy champion to tank damage and stay in fights longer. Cosmic Drive. Probably the last viable choice. This item can synergize well with Diana with the flat stats it provides and movement speed passive to kite enemies. Basically, anytime you land abilities, it provides extra movement speed, which scales with ability haste. Elixirs. In most cases, pick up Sorcery anytime you have full build or before a potential final fight of the game. Consider Elixir of Iron in some cases, especially if you have enough damage on your team and find yourself taking a more tanky or frontline role in teamfights. Shards. For the first 2 shards, you almost always want to take Adaptive Force. Not only does Diana benefit from the AP for damage, but it also provides shield strength towards her W, essentially improving her defenses as well. You can take attack speed for the first shard if you've opted to take the Conqueror rune. The final shard should be picked based on your laner. If you're unsure in champ select, the armor shard is usually the safest choice, as it helps against auto attacks even if the enemy is AP. Summoner Spells. Flash is the first summoner spell you want to take. Whether you want to flash engage or simply escape, this summoner spell alone can help you win entire games. As for your second summoner spell, Ignite is by far the most favorable, as it increases your chance to pick up kills early and generally have lane pressure, especially during those early skirmishes with your jungler. Grievous wounds counter any healing champion's potential to survive from their sustain. A final tip to note is that anytime you ignite a champion, it will provide vision of them. If enemies were to flash over a wall, into a brush, or generally in fog of war, you'll now have vision of them to follow up with your E, which will not only help you finish off enemies, but might even save you from using your flash. Teleport is another optimal spell, and you'll have a lot of global pressure, but you'll sacrifice the early game kill potential compared to Ignite. Consider this against very hard matchups, where you'll take considerable amount of poke and harass and need to early back. By teleporting to lane, you'll be able to stay relevant in levels and gold without falling behind. Great if you ever want to side lane or split push as well. I would rarely consider other spells, but Exhaust and Cleanse are defensive spells worth mentioning. Before we get into combos, let's quickly mention a few unique interactions that you'll want to keep in mind while performing combos. Her passive empowered auto attack. You want to initiate most combos with your empowered auto attack ready, but only when you have the time. Basically, auto attack a minion or another target twice, then proceed to combo your main target. This allows for more damage within a smaller amount of time, and can make the difference between those trades early game. Her Q Moonlight has 3 seconds before it runs out. This means you may want to wait around 2 to 2.5 seconds before engaging with E in order to buy time, so your Q is almost up again while you're on top of your enemy. Essentially, you'll be able to have 3 dashes within a combo, making it almost impossible for enemies to escape. I'll further explain this shortly. Although W has 3 spheres, only the first detonation will count as 1 Electrocute stack. Using E-dash can leave you at 2 different locations. If you E-dash within 400 range, which is around this distance, you'll actually dash through the enemy, basically ending up on the other side of the enemy, making it easier to stick to the target and harder for them to retreat. However, if you E-dash over 400 range, you'll simply end up next to them from the same side you dashed. Just keep this in mind before you dash in, as it may interrupt the rhythm of your combos. Her Q interaction with E. Even if the target you QE towards dies before you reach it, your E will still reset. Keep this in mind for big gap closing combos. Once your Q damage increases, it's important to have a good idea of how much damage it does, otherwise if you Q a target and it dies before you can press E, you might just lose an important gap close target. Pre-6 combos. Main trade combo. Q, E, W, empowered auto. Auto attack minions twice to charge up your empowered auto when possible. If you have landed Q and are in E range, dash in, instantly press W, which will activate mid dash, and you'll proc Electrocute once you arrive, for some big burst damage early on. What you do from here is situational. If you can't kill your target and want to avoid taking any damage, E-dash back to a minion. Otherwise, you can keep auto attacking them, ignite and go for a kill. Save your final E for their flash or to stick to them once they are out of auto attack range. If you're extremely confident you'll land Q, don't even wait for it to land. Simply E-dash after you press Q. Escape combo. Q over wall onto neutral monsters, E, then E again to another further away target. This can work with minions or even other less threatening champions. Not only does this combo allow you to reset your E, you can then E-dash to another target if you need. The Q will first provide vision of the camps and will let you know whether they're up or not. If your Q isn't up and you want to use jungle camps for an escape, use a ward over the wall for vision. Triple dash with a single Q. Q, then E 3 times. Although not exactly something you can pull off consistently, whenever there are multiple enemies around, you can use this as an opportunity to reset your E before your Q completes its trajectory. Only the first E-dash has to be quick. Then you can E-dash to the Moonlight target, which will then reset E again, and finish with another E-dash to close even more distance or attack another target. Most enemy players won't be keeping count, let alone expect 3 dashes from you. Again, not something to consistently look for, but if the opportunity arises, perhaps you're around plenty of minions, jungle camps or enemy champions, this will really separate you from other Diana players. Ultimate combos. Instant E ult. E then press ultimate. You can press R right after you E-dash for a quicker pull in from your ultimate, making it harder for enemies to react. Standard ultimate combo. Q, E, W, empowered auto, ultimate. Basically, it's the same as the main trade combo, but this time you'll have your ultimate for extra damage and CC for high potential to kill most targets. You can auto the enemy a few more times before your ultimate, and once they're out of auto range, then use R to bring them towards you. save your last E dash either to counter any dashes or flashes they may have. Maximum damage ultimate. Q, wait 2 to 2.5 seconds. E, W, empowered auto attack. Q, E, auto attack. Ultimate, auto attack, E, and then finish with auto attacks. This combo involves some good timing, aiming to get 2 Qs and 3 Es within a rotation. Don't be worried about the length of this combo. It's similar to the combo from before, but this time we'll be buying around 2 seconds of time for Q to come off cooldown, so we can then use Q and E again mid-combo. The auto attacks are flexible. With some mobile champs, you won't have time. Other less mobile champs, you'll be able to fit in more auto attacks before your final E. The final E dash should be used to counter their escapes, whether it's a dash or flash, then finish off with auto attacks. Fast ultimate combo. E, W, ultimate, then Q. If speed is important and you don't have time to set up like the last combo, you want to use this. Enemies will have little time to react. This will be your main combo to catch out enemies when they are bunched up, so you can hit multiple enemies, ultimately increasing the damage of your R Moonfall, which can be a huge game-changing play, especially if you get that dream 5-man ultimate. One small tip to note for some extra damage is your W. You can actually activate W after R when all enemies are on top of you in order to AoE damage all of them. If you use W early, it might be completely absorbed by the main target you E-dash towards. The backline snipe. Q, E, W, empowered auto attack, ultimate, then E. Same as the standard combo, but you'll want to use your second E to dash towards the backline squishy target before your Moonfall damage lands. You can also save your W for the second E if you want the extra damage and the shield won't be needed earlier. Flash combos. Q flash. Q then flash. You can extend the range of Q, redirect it, and even extend the actual length of the Q arc bolt. Great to finish low HP enemies further away, or initiate another combo using the Moonlight afflicted enemy as your E dash target. Special note with Q flash. Whether it's intended or not, you can actually extend the range of Q without having to flash forward by simply flashing sideways. However, you can only flash towards Diana's left side. If you flash towards Diana's right side, it will actually half the distance of Q, which is important to know as it might ruin your chance of a snipe kill. Instant double shield. W then flash on top of enemy. Great for clutch moments when you're about to die and the initial shield won't be enough. Simply flash on top of a target to instantly detonate all 3 spheres and activate the double shield. The damage and shield might be enough to finish them off and help you survive. Ultimate flash. Ultimate, then flash. You want to press R and instantly flash. There is an extremely small window before you pull enemies in right after you press R. This is great when you either want to surprise enemy when your E is on cooldown, or perhaps you see the perfect opportunity to ultimate multiple enemies. Flash combo. Q, flash, E, W, auto attack. Same combo as the main trade combo, but instead, you'll be flashing right after you press Q to increase the distance. Use the second E whenever it's best to gap close. You can even add an ultimate if you need at the end. Great to initiate or finish off enemies if you need flash to close the distance for your E. Backline snipe with flash. Basically the same as a backline snipe using flash to gap close. Sometimes you won't have E reset, so simply flash before your ultimate Moonfall damage falls on top of the backline target you're trying to assassinate. Item combos. Zhonya's Hourglass. Ultimate, then Zhonya's. One of the most effective combos and items on Diana. You'll be able to use Zhonya's right after you activate your ultimate. This means enemies will be pulled in and take damage while you are still in Zhonya's stasis. Quick safe burst. Q, E, W, Zhonya's. You can Zhonya's mid dash, which means you can perform a quick combo and end up at the enemy location while in the safety of Zhonya's stasis. It will proc Electrocute and you can even add Ignite for even more damage. Hextech Rocketbelt. Gap close. Rocketbelt, then E. Use the dash from Rocketbelt to gap close, and then E. Make sure to spam E after Rocketbelt, as it will only cast E once the Rocketbelt animation is over. In some cases, after using the Rocketbelt active, utilize the bonus movement speed to gap close up to 1.5 seconds, then use E. Another gap close combo, Rocketbelt then ultimate. This allows you to gap close before you use ultimate. Flash is still better for gap closing and surprising enemies, but this combo has a much shorter cooldown. You can even use ultimate on at least one target to activate the Moonfall, then Rocketbelt to reposition within the 1 seconds so more targets are hit by the Moonfall damage. By the way, you cannot ultimate then instantly Rocketbelt like the ult flash combo. Auto attack cancel. Auto attack, Rocketbelt active, then auto attack. This is a general combo with Rocketbelt that allows you to cancel the auto attack animation, essentially allowing you to auto attack twice, much faster, helping Diana activate her third empowered auto. Bluff Belt. E, then Rocketbelt. You can cancel the E dash using Rocketbelt active before you reach your target. This can be used to bluff and engage, which may bait enemies' abilities and even summoner spells. Note that the enemies won't take damage from E. Another interesting thing to note is that enemies with Moonlight will reset your E, so you can actually bluff the first E engage, then go in with another E. Unique combos. Split push tower shred. There's no real combo, but in order to optimize the attack speed and empowered auto attack from your passive, you want to use an ability every 3 seconds in order to reset the attack speed bonus timer. If you've purchased Lich Bane, just use an ability every 2 seconds in order to activate the Lich Bane passive. Remember to use minions close by to quickly put W on cooldown by detonating all spheres. Also, use Q on minions, then E on those minions, so you still activate E, but you won't put it on cooldown. If you anticipate enemies nearby, it might be best to save your cooldowns. Now I want to mention extra interactions and information on Diana's abilities that aren't exactly game breaking, but they'll provide you with that extra edge that you can use to your advantage. Her passive. Each auto attack has a unique animation, and she glows when the empowered auto attack is ready. Memorizing these animations can make it easier to remember how many stacks you have without having to look above your abilities. The first animation is a backhand animation, the second is a forward swipe, and then she'll just glow when the third auto attack is ready, in which she uses the backhand animation again. Her Q. The tip of the arc grants sight briefly, so even if you don't hit an enemy, that slight vision may reveal any enemies walking by, or even if there's a control ward in that brush. A quick note in order to utilize the vision of Moonlight. If you're already on top of your enemy and you've queued them, hold on to E for a little longer until they flash over a wall or into a brush to escape, then follow up with your E. The vision Moonlight provides will allow you to gap close with E without using a ward or even flash. If the target spell shields the bolt, they may still be damaged by the explosion. Moonlight will not be applied to the protected target if it's blocked. Here's the champs and items that this applies to. If the ability is cast at max range and she moves backwards while casting, the bolt will travel to the target location with increased distance. Whether it's intended or not, you can actually surpass the range of maximum range Q by moving your cursor as further away as possible. In this example, I've aimed it at the furthest possible distance away, the enemy base, and it slightly increased the range of Q, allowing to hit this target, which wouldn't be possible if I simply aim it on my screen. This isn't useful in 99% of situations, but it's very interesting to note. Using Q right on top of enemies. During fights when enemies are right on top of you, it might be slightly safer to Q past the enemy instead of right on top of Diana, as there's a small chance the explosion radius will miss completely. Her W. In some heavy poke or harass lanes, you can actually add 1 or 2 extra points in W early if you want the extra shield strength to absorb certain enemy abilities. Remember to use W as an effective bait tool. Force enemies to commit, and then just when they think they have you, activate your shield and turn on them. Flash on top of enemies in clutch situations for instant double shield, as mentioned in the combo section. Careful with using the main trade combo when around minions. If you use your W early, minions will actually tank the sphere damage and you might not even deal any damage from W onto your target. Basically, in this case, wait until you're on top of the target, then use W. Diana's W's cooldown will begin once all spheres have detonated or they expire after 5 seconds. If you want 2 shields over 10 seconds, activate W for the first shield, then try to detonate the spheres at around 4 seconds to activate the second shield. If you want W to be off cooldown in the quickest time, immediately detonate all the spheres. Her E. Using E on the Moonlight target will reset E once your dash has ended, even if interrupted. For example, you use Flash to cancel the dash, an enemy uses a stun or displacement ability, or perhaps you take a Thresh Lantern mid-dash. This is great for peace of mind, as even if your dash is interrupted, you'll still have another E to escape or continue with. We mentioned in combos how using E within 400 range places you slightly behind the enemy. Remember to use this mechanic to dodge certain skill shots. This will take careful timing and prediction. If Moonlight is consumed from the target or they die mid-dash while being afflicted by Moonlight, her E cooldown is reduced to 0.5 seconds. This makes it a safe method for spamming E until you start traveling without accidentally using both E's quickly. Important wall dashes. Diana's E range is quite long, but there'll be some important walls you'll want to memorize to allow for really clutch escapes or potential to steal objectives. Remember to use that backline snipe combo, using a champion to activate Moonfall, then E onto Baron or Dragon for a clutch steal. You can cast all 3 other spells during your dash. For example, you can E dash to one enemy, then use Q on another enemy further away. Her ultimate. You can actually pull enemies from over walls, although this only works around thin walls and enemies must be very close to the wall. The pull-in CC is great to cancel any enemies with dashes. However, this takes good timing and prediction. Remember to also use this to interrupt any enemy abilities that require a channel time. Clones count as champions for increasing this ability's damage. Here are a list of champions that create clones. Remember to use those clones in order to increase the damage, especially in the 1v1s, in order to increase the damage. Although a rare case, the damage is not capped at pulling 5 enemy champions. If Moonfall affects additional clones or champions, the bonus magic damage increases even more. The beam of Moonlight does not crush down if champions hit block the initial effect with a spell shield. Here are the spell shield champions and items to be aware of. Enemy champions protected by spell shield do not count towards the damage increase. A lunar phase of the moon will appear above Diana's head while she is casting Moonfall. Each phase is based on the number of enemy champions pulled. 1 to 5 different animations will appear. Early game laning phase. Invades aren't recommended with Diana, as her level 1 is quite lackluster, but you could always take Q for the AoE damage if your team is adamant on invading. Laning phase is the same for most games, which includes playing safely until level 3, avoiding as much poke as possible. You can actually take W at level 1 anytime you want the shield to absorb damage, and might even win you trades against early melee champs who ever jump on you. Against ranged champs, try to pick up CS with Q, however, you can't always waste mana on a single caster minion. Try to save Q for either 2 casters or melee minions, and always save it for the cannon minion. To be really efficient, aim to try and finish off minions and poke the enemy with a single Q. Use your Q for pressure in lane to force enemies to back off and keep them guessing, instead of just throwing it out anytime you have the chance. Enemies can easily read your body language when you start walking up, so holding it a little longer and walking back and forth will make it harder for them to guess. Remember to use W whenever you need to walk up to last hit minions, using the shield to tank any enemy abilities and auto attacks. Against melee champs, you'll have a much better chance to trade, especially with your W shield. A single Q, W, and empowered auto will proc Electrocute, and you can win most trades like this. However, there are still some champs you need to respect. You'll want to decide early whether you want to try to push the wave, which may not always be possible, or try to let the wave push so it sits ideally just outside your tower to encourage ganks from your jungler. Use the W shield to tank some minion damage if needed for the freeze. Against heavy pushing champions, you'll end up CSing under tower. Use your W under tower to slightly reduce the minions' HP. Then once minions have taken 1 tower shot, they'll need exactly 1 more auto attack to finish them off. Don't be too hard on yourself if you fall behind early on CS. Your power spike will come later on, so just focus on staying even in experience and levels. If you're going to push the wave, make sure you pay attention early to where the enemy jungler started. You'll then want to place a ward on the opposite side and stay close to this side with vision. Consider placing aggressive ward in the enemy jungle as well, since you are decent in early skirmishes. Trading combos and skirmishes. Once the wave is back to even and you're level 3, you'll now want to consider going in for a trade. You can look for hard trades with a Q-E-W combo, making sure to charge your autos on minions. This should chunk most enemies to around 50% HP, and if you've already Q-poked them, there's potential to pick up a kill. Because you've frozen the wave close to your tower, you now have a lot of distance to go for a hard trade and even all-ins. This is why you'll rarely want to push in the wave early as Diana, as when enemies freeze in front of their tower, it makes it much harder to go in for hard trades, and you'll basically be unable to output most of your damage from your abilities, especially if you're passive autos, not to mention you're more vulnerable to ganks. If you do notice early that your jungler is invading or they let you know, then pushing the wave in or having it sit in the middle would be optimal, as you'll have priority in skirmishes early on. With your E, you can now dash and maneuver through parts of the jungle. With an early level 3 combo and your jungler to help, you'll burst most champs. Stay alert and be ready to start fights in the river when junglers go for early crabs. Aim for at least 1050 gold before you recall to base for your Hextech alternator, where you'll have a small power spike at this point. If you have to early back, Dark Seal, Boots, Refillable, and any basic items like Amplifying Tobe or Ruby Crystal is fine. When to trade. As a melee champ, trades can be very costly for the laning phase and can even decide the impact you have on an entire game. Obviously, this can heavily depend on the enemy champion, but a general rule of thumb includes a few things. Stay at or close to full HP before engages. This means avoid taking heavy poke before level 3. Sometimes if you've taken TP, you can afford to take a bad trade early. Having minion waves close to your tower. This will give you the space you need to combo the enemy over a longer trade. Have a plan after your combo. Can you all in them? Then it's time to ignite and finish with as many auto attacks as possible. If you can't all in, make sure you factor in the damage you'll take after the trade from the enemy returning damage as you walk back. The size of the minion wave. A large minion wave will significantly ruin your chances at winning a trade. Try to thin out or even out the wave before a hard trade. Try to land a few Q pokes beforehand. Chunking champs with Q before a trade is always the safest method to securing a lead in lane. This can vary though, as some champs have the sustain to negate poke damage, and some rare times you'll actually have a few points in W, so your Q will have little effect. Wait for enemies to miss at least one of their abilities, ideally their most important ones, which are mostly CC abilities. CC will be your main threat, as it can completely stop you from comboing and allow the enemy to kite you to death. If you follow most of these rules, you'll be safe in most matchups. At level 6 you'll have a solid kill potential on most squishies if you get a full rotation off. Roaming. Diana has great gank potential anytime you decide to roam either bot, top, or even jungle. Q then dashing in, followed by your ultimate, will almost always result in a kill or at least a flash. Although you can gank before 6, you still have 2 potential dashes, but not the important pull in and slow CC from your level 6 ultimate. Things to consider when looking to gank. Basically, just make sure to push in your wave before most roams, using your abilities and your passive AoE auto attack to push in the waves. Pushing mid tower. Enemies should never underestimate your potential to take towers extremely fast. There will be instances where your laner will roam before you. When you're unable to follow your laner or your team backs off after you spam ping them, just focus on pushing waves and taking towers, using your passive attack speed and empowered auto attack for additional damage. 2 tower platings early game is worth 320 gold, which is worth about a kill, and you'll be closer to opening up the map by taking down their mid tower. Be prepared to catch out squishy vulnerable champs who come past through river or jungle on their way back from bot or top lane. Skirmishes. We mentioned earlier how skirmishes are mostly in your favor. Once you've reached level 6, this becomes amplified and you should look to force fights anytime you have the chance. Diana really excels in these situations, and you should look at opportunities to snowball the game and make plays. To summarize most of what I've already mentioned into common situations. If you're ahead, look to kill your laner, jungler, or push your lead by roaming. Force fights with your jungler in skirmishes whenever possible. Push minion waves in so your jungler has priority. Early fights around Dragon and Herald will favor you because of your ultimate. If you're behind, Safely farm by spamming Q, keeping in mind the points I mentioned earlier, especially staying close in levels at minimum. Roaming when you can and avoid dying to your laner anymore. Try to stay as patient as possible and be ready to set up if your jungler is ganking. Try to appear off the map and out of vision, even if you don't intend to roam. Applying this pressure may help your laners, as the enemy mid will be spamming missing pinks, consequently forcing other enemy laners to play passive. These two conditions assume your team is even in gold and levels, so let's cover two more conditions. If you're ahead but your team is behind. Being considered as mainly as an assassin, you need to focus on killing enemy champion that is fed and has a shutdown. Assuming your enemy laner is behind, now it's time to spread your lead to lanes that are struggling. You're dealing plenty of damage at this point, so if possible, do what you can to output damage early so your teammates can pick up some kills on low HP targets. This doesn't mean you should engage and put yourself at risk because you're still worth a shutdown, but allowing your teammates, especially those late game carries, to pick up some needed gold will give you that late game assurance. If you're behind but your team is ahead, at this point you'll lack damage but your ultimate is still extremely useful. Don't be afraid to die in a fight if it means you can stall time and soak up enemy abilities, allowing your teammates to capitalize and deal more damage. Even simply going in deep to the enemy backline and forcing them to stay back while you W shield, E dash, ultimate pull them in, plus the slow and Zhonya stall, this will give your carries a chance to output damage without much threat. Mid game. Item plus level power spike, making picks, forcing fights and objectives. This is Diana's time to shine. You'll usually have 2 to 3 AP items, which is more than enough to burst most squishies, so be ready to catch out enemies. At this point, you should be looking to make picks with or without your team. A single pick can really open up the game, giving your team the advantage to take objectives. This is also the time where you have amazing potential to 1v2, even 1v3, especially if you camp a brush and create an opening to ultimate combo 2 or more enemy champions. Even if you take out 2 enemies and get killed, it will hopefully allow for the rest of your team to pick up objectives and farm around the map. You do plenty of consistent damage to epic monsters from your abilities and passive autos, so be sure to help take those when you can. However, save your cooldowns whenever you need to turn and fight. Fights around the river, jungle or epic monster pits are great for Diana. Not only are champions grouped up, increasing your chance to damage and CC multiple enemies with your ultimate, there is plenty of brushes and lack of vision to catch out players. Diving is an option if your team is ahead, especially if you can land an ultimate on multiple enemies and survive with Zhonya's active. Side lane farming. Anytime you are struggling or slightly behind, picking up farm in the side lanes is going to be a reliable way to stay relevant with golden levels. However, this will put a target on your head, forcing 1 or more enemy champs to deal with you. You'll have the tools to 1v1 most champs, but if you feel like you can't or you're outnumbered, you may have to find a way to escape or stall for your allies to come and help. Practice and plan areas around walls to dash over. Take advantages of areas like the alcoves, river or jungle whenever you're looking to farm side lanes. Split pushing strategy. If you're ahead but your team is behind, Diana does have the potential to split push, and at this point, something like a Lich Bane or a Nash's Tooth could be a one ticket to a comeback, helping you take towers extremely fast. Attracting 1 or more champs to come and deal with you may just open up the map, allowing your teams to capitalize on objectives and finally win a fight on their own with a numbers advantage. I would rarely recommend this, however, as Diana has so much potential to turn games around when you're able to get a 4 to 5 man ultimate, even when most of your team is behind. It's a much safer option to split push when you have TP, as the option to join your team is crucial. Vision control and snowballing your lead. Diana really excels when the enemy lacks vision, as you can surprise E-dash then ultimate towards them, so upgrading a trinket to Oracle Lens and buying control wards will passively create pressure for the enemy team. I would urge you to close out the game as soon as possible when ahead on Diana, as your chances to one-shot most champs will slowly decrease once players finish their Guardian Angel and Zhonya's Hourglass. This isn't to say Diana has a weak late game, but because of her insane snowball potential, it would almost be considered a waste not to finish out games, especially considering you can literally start walking into enemies' bases under towers, one-shotting squishies, and still coming out alive. Playing around team and especially supports. This is something to keep in mind in mid-game, but what you want to do is look for synergy within your team, especially your support. If you have enchanted champs like Soraka, Janna, or Nami, you can really push your limits. With a shield plus healing and some peel, you may even have the potential to 1v5 in some rare cases, as enemies just won't be able to burst you before you heal and sustain. Objectives. A last mention to always help with objectives. You have consistent damage from all your abilities and passive autos, even more with items like Lich Bane and Nashor's Tooth. Late game. A lot of mid game still applies to late game with Diana. However, you'll be punished much harder if you ever decide to go all in and mess it up. In saying that, one good ultimate can change an entire team fight and ultimately win you the game. Keep an eye on enemies who have flash or any important abilities on cooldown, as you'll have a greater chance to wipe them out early in a team fight. Try to build accordingly, keeping in mind factors like your team comp, enemy team comp, damage output and survival items like GA, Maw, Spirit Visage, Sterax, etc. Like most assassins, you'll have a much harder time assassinating squishy champs, as they'll be constantly grouped and have their survivability items. Again, fights around Barons and Elder Dragons are great since the tight areas force enemies to group together. Unconventional strategy. If the chance to backdoor arises and you have TP, be ready to make a play. If enemies have an open base and you are confident they're all out of base, or at least the main threats are defending, it's your time to TP in and win the game. Team fighting. This can happen at any time from early to late game, and each team fight, even in the same game, can feel completely different depending on the location you fight, your items, enemy items, how the fight started, and how effective your ultimate was. Regardless of any of these variables, you should have an objective in most fights. Multiple enemies grouped up. First and foremost, when it comes to playing Diana in teamfights, you should look to hit as many enemies in your ultimate as possible. If you can get 3 or more enemies, you'll already have a high chance to win the fight. Burst squishies. Another important focus with a burst champ like Diana. Bursting an enemy carry, especially before a teamfight even begins, can easily win the entire fight. Frontlining. Becoming a frontline is a playstyle you have to take on, especially when your team lacks an actual tank. This means anytime you E-dash in, you'll instantly have multiple enemies targeting you, so Zhonya's Hourglass becomes essential to buy time. Engaging. If you don't have any effective engagers on your team, it will be up to you to initiate fights. Diana excels when enemies have almost no time to react, so consider flanking from different directions. Even coming from behind will catch most players off guard, forcing them to panic, and this will give your team the upper hand so they can collapse. Peeling. When you have an extremely fed carry, you've fallen behind, and you don't have an easy way through the backline, peeling may be the best, so figure out which carries you want to prioritize to protect. Output damage towards the enemy attacking your carry, and even use your ultimate to pull them away. Zoning. There are times the enemy backline is separated from their front line. This doesn't mean you should just jump in solo into the enemy backline. Instead, just zone out their backline, constantly walking back or forth so enemies are too scared to get close. This will stop them from outputting damage while your team shreds their front line. Before we go over specific champion matchups, let's quickly mention what makes a lane easy, medium, or hard for Diana. An easy matchup means Diana has little trouble farming early on, can win trades, and even outpoke some champions. A medium matchup is usually skill based. You'll still have to play the lane safely the first few levels, but their kill threat isn't high. There'll be specific trade windows you'll want to take advantage of. You'll have a high chance to kill them at level 6. A hard lane means Diana will not only struggle to farm safely, but lacks kill pressure even at level 6. They're usually extremely poke heavy, have good sustain, or can outtrade you, especially in extended trades. You may need ganks to get ahead, but surviving lane will be your main goal, focusing on abusing Diana's strengths in teamfights and making picks later on. I want to try something different this time in champion matchups, and that's keeping things really simple. I will mention key abilities you have to watch out for, and a few tips, and even some unique interactions you can take advantage of. Remember to apply the tips from gameplay and most of this guide for general laning strategies. Easy matchups. Aurelion Sol. His slow moving Q is the only ability you need to watch out for. Stay close to him to avoid taking his W orb damage. His main threat comes from his wave clearing and roaming. Ward when you can and ping teammates when he appears off screen. When you all hit him at level 6, he will knock you back with his ultimate, so save an E to stick to him. Katarina. Anytime she E blinks to you, just use W to tank most of her damage, then Q E auto attack combo her. You can cancel her ultimate with yours. Nico. Her E root is her only main threat, and it will increase the root duration and speed and width if it passes through minions. Therefore, try not to align with minions and go aggressive when it's down. At level 6, you can actually use her clone to activate more damage on your ultimate. Kiana. Bully her early with your Q poke. Avoid her Q poke by standing behind minions and go aggressive when you can. As long as you stay close to full HP, she struggles to ever outtrade you. You can interrupt her E dash with your ult pull in. Stay away from walls and rivers and brushes when she's level 6. Rise. Play safe until level 3 and then go for trade combos. You can interrupt his teleport ultimate with yours. Talon. You can absorb damage from his W rake with your W shield. Just respect his 3-stack passive, which he needs to land both Ws and 1 Q. His main issue comes from his constant E wall jump roaming, so place wards and ping teammates. Seekers and Zhonyas are solid defensive options. Twisted Fate. Go for hard trades and all-ins when you can. His only real threat comes from his yellow stun card, followed up by a jungler gank. Try to freeze waves just outside your tower to avoid this. At level 6, he would look to push waves and teleport ult, so then keep waves pushed and place wards behind river walls and ping at teammates when he's level 6. Veigar. His cage keeps him safe from extended trades, but you can still go in for quick combos and just try to dodge his Q and W once you're in his cage. Look to all in him at level 6, but make sure you engage at close to full health, as his ultimate can finish you off at around 30% HP. Zed. It will be a Q poke battle until level 3. When he uses his W shadow combo, use shield and then go aggressive when you can, as you'll have about 20 seconds before he can use it again. At level 6, you really don't want to ult him until he ults you first, as he can just easily dodge your ultimate damage if you ult first. Seekers and Zhonyas are solid defensive options. Ziggs. Avoid standing next to minions or he will land his Q splash damage. He is all skill shots, so early boots will help to dodge them. All in him anytime you can catch him out. Medium matchups. Akali. Keep out of her short Q range, and she can't follow up with her empowered auto. Try not to go for trades until her shroud is down. It has a 20-second cooldown. You can reveal her with your Q in her shroud. At level 6, after you've ulted, be ready to follow her once she tries to get out with her E or ultimate, in order for you to get your damage out from your ult. Annie. Only respect her when she has 3 or 4 stacks under her health bar to activate her stun, and then go aggressive when it's down. She can burst you at level 6, so Mercury treads are a great defensive option to counter her burst and CC. Echo. As long as he doesn't land his W stun, you should come out ahead or even in trades. Watch out when he appears off screen or comes from a brush, as he may be charging it. Avoid his 3-stack passive damage when you can. Try not to use your ultimate first if he has ult up, as he can easily then dodge your damage and then counter burst you. Fizz. You can outtrade him early. Avoid his E pole jump when you can and go aggressive when it's down. It has a 15 to 10 second cooldown early game. At level 6, he can dodge your ultimate damage with his E jump, so only all in him when it's down. LeBlanc. Be ready to time your W whenever she's about to W dash onto you. Be ready to counter her after her combo, and you can try and predict her return by aiming your Q at her teleport spot. Your Q Moonlight as well as Ignite will reveal the real LeBlanc anytime she's low and her clone appears. Her E chain is threatening, so be ready to sidestep it. At level 6, you can use her clone for extra damage on your ultimate. Lux. She can poke you down with her Q, E, and empowered auto attacks, so respect her early. Look to bait out her Q, and once it's down, look for combos and even all-ins. After 6, look to catch her out and all-in her. Many Luxes take barrier as a summoner spell, so anytime you try to dive her, take her W shield and barrier into account, plus her potential to CC you under tower. She is all skill shots, so early boots will help to dodge them. Malzahar. This becomes a very stale lane, as he will look to push waves constantly. Try to finish off his voidlings to reduce his pushing pressure and force him to use more mana. Use your shield to absorb his E space aids. Look to remove his shield before you go in for trades and all in him. At level 6, be cautious with enemy junglers, as Malzahar can simply flash ult to suppress you. Orianna. Early game she will abuse her range with her ball and auto attack poke, so play patiently. At level 3 you can look for trades. At level 6 you can look for all-ins after some Q poke or one trade combo. Vel'Koz. He's all skill shots, so early boots will help dodge them. Avoid letting him stack his passive 3 times or you'll take a chunk of true damage. At level 6, try to catch him out and all in him. Keep track of his flash and ping it to let your jungler know, as he's extremely vulnerable. His main peel tool is his E knockup, so go aggressive when it's down. It has a 16-second cooldown. You can cancel his ultimate with yours. Victor. Respect his Q and E laser plus his auto attacks early on. Save at least one E dash anytime you go in for a combo to get out of his stun field, either go onto him or minions nearby. At level 6, his burst is a threat, so look to get some Q poke or trade combos before an all-in. Vladimir. Take Ignite if you want any chance to kill him, as it counters his healing and damages him in his W blood pool. Your mana usage is important, since Vlad is manaless, he will always outsustain you. His pool has around 30-second cooldown early game. At level 6, he can avoid your ultimate damage with his W pool, so only ult him while it's down. Oblivion Orb is a solid item to counter his healing. Xerath. He is all skill shots, so boots on your first back will help dodge them. Try sidestepping as randomly as possible. Stay behind minions or further back to avoid his E stun, and go aggressive anytime it's down. It has a 13-second cooldown early game. At level 6, look to catch him out and all in him. Keep track of his flash and ping it to let your jungler know. You can cancel his ult with yours. Mercury Treads are great buy to counter his poke and CC. Yone. He will look for trades when his Q dash knockup and E is up. When his E is down, look for trade combos, which has around 20-second cooldown. During his E, you can look to land Q, and then once he returns, follow up with your E. At level 6, he will win all-ins with his consistent damage, so aim to Q poke and trade beforehand. Seeker's Arm Guard and Zhonya's are solid defensive options. Zoe. Her E bubble is her main threat, as it will be followed up by a fully charged Q and empowered auto attack, chunking you for 50% HP early game. Go aggressive while her E is down, which has a 20-second cooldown early game. Pay attention and respect her W spells, which is displayed next to her HP bar. This is one of the few lanes you may want to take Cleanse over Ignite to escape her E bubble, and seeing as she can use your Ignite against you. Hard matchups. Ahri. Her charm makes it very hard to go aggressive on her, so only go in for combos when it's down. Even if you get hit by the first part of her Q orb, sidestep it to avoid the second true damage part. At level 6, it becomes hard to all in her, as she has 3 dashes, so try to instantly dash with your second E to land your ultimate damage. Anivia. Her Q stun becomes easy to land when you E dash in, so it's best to wait until it's down. Her egg makes it very hard to kill her early game. Make sure you pig the egg Nivea or let your jungler know when it's down. Her egg has a 4-minute cooldown. At level 6, don't go aggressive on her unless she uses Q and her ult. Save E to dash out of her ult anytime you have the chance. Azir. Respect his Q poke range and stay out of his soldier range. Unless he has used his E dash, careful going in, as he can just dash away from you and then counter trade. At level 6, he can peel you off with his ultimate. Be very cautious next to towers, as he can sweep you behind. Cassiopeia. Her miasma poison area locks you down, so you can't use E. Either wait until it's down or E dash over it. Back off early when she lands any Qs, as it will be followed up by E spam. At level 6, you can all in her, but be ready to face away to avoid being stunned, or E a second time at very close range to end up behind her. Galio. His tankiness and CC makes it very hard to win trades. Probably one of the few lanes worth taking Conqueror for the consistent damage and sustain. You can look for trades if he ever wastes Q or E. At level 6, he will look to ult teleport, so ward behind walls or deep in lane and ping teammates. You can interrupt his ultimate, but only within the first second with your ultimate. Irelia. Avoid her E stun and you should win most trades. Also look out for her passive once she's reached 5 stacks, as she'll have enhanced auto attacks. Respect her level 6, as anytime she lands her ultimate, she can easily combo you from 100 to 0. Cascade. His QMR shield will negate any of your Q poke, so wait until it's down. Look for trade combos early on. At level 6, he's not exactly a huge threat to you, but he will be almost impossible to kill, unless he just dashes on top of you, in which case immediately turn on him with a full combo. Lucian, play extremely safe early on and only go for combos if he wastes E. His lane dominance means any bad trade and you'll fall behind instantly. Play to survive lane and take advantage of your teamfight potential. Rumble. His shield makes it hard to win trades, and being a manaless champ, he will outsustain you. At level 6, if you ever fight him, save an E dash to get out of his ultimate AoE field. Silas. Keep trades quick as possible as he will heal most damage taken with his W heal. Ignite is a must if you have any chance of killing him, and Oblivion Orb is a great item to counter him, especially if he maxes W first. At level 6, he will use your ult against you, which means he will have extremely good stick and burst potential. Good news is he won't be able to steal your ultimate for another 3 minutes. Syndra. Her main threat comes from a long E range stun. Don't align with orbs already on the floor. When her E is down, that's the only time you can go in safely for a trade. Very poke heavy with her skill shots, so boots for dodging is recommended, and Mercury treads as a solid defensive option to counter her burst and CC. Viego. Keep your distance to avoid taking his Q poke damage. Avoid being stunned, so try to sidestep it once he starts charging. You'll take extra damage from his autos after he lands Q or E. At level 6, avoid using your ultimate before his, as he can time it to avoid all your damage. Seekers and Zhonyas are solid defensive options. Yasuo. Keep trades short as he will win extended trades. Try to remove his passive shield before you go in for trades. Keep your distance and poke with Q. Be extra cautious against junglers with displacement CC, as Yasuo can then ultimate combo onto you. Seekers and Zhonyas are solid defensive options. Let's cover strengths, basically reasons you want to pick Diana over other champions and introduce her to your champion pool. Then we'll discuss weaknesses and ways to combat these disadvantages. Her strengths. Burst. As an AP melee assassin, you'll be able to combo burst most squishies. With a few completed items and a multiple enemy ultimate, don't be surprised if you instantly take out 2 or 3 squishies in the backline. Teamfights. This is where Diana excels. Landing a 3 or more enemy ultimate can make up for an entire bad laning phase. Tower Shred split push potential. With an attack speed steroid and empowered auto attack, as well as items like Lich, Bane and Nash's, Diana is effective at taking towers extremely fast. Skirmishes. With AoE damage from her empowered auto, Q, W and ultimate, Diana has the potential to shine in skirmishes and clean up fights with her E reset. Making picks engage. Her E dash has surprisingly long range. Anytime you can catch out a squishy, you won't even need an E reset to one-shot combo them. This also applies to engaging when enemies are bunched up. E dash in and scoop them up in your ultimate for amazing engage potential. Tanky. Although not an actual tank, Diana is probably the tankiest assassin in the game. Her W shield scales with AP, so you're never reliant on building any tanky items. Weaknesses. Weak early laning. As an AP melee champion in the mid lane, Diana will be forced to adopt a passive playstyle against most matchups. You can even accidentally push the lane with badly placed Qs and Ws. This weakness will come down to how mentally prepared you are, so even if you fall behind on CS, remember you'll have plenty of chances to dominate in teamfights. Patience is the key to her laning. Mana issues. Utilizing the range from Q and the shield from W to safely pick up CS in lane is effective at staying even in gold. However, this will leave Diana low on mana, especially considering you rarely build any mana items. This issue kind of leads on from the last weakness. Aim to use your Q when it's efficient. A single caster or melee minion isn't worth the mana of Q when you are low on mana. Aim for 2 or more minions when they are bunched up, and especially save it for cannon minions. Try to poke the enemy, thin out the wave, and pick up CS with a single Q for maximum efficiency. If you see a bunch of 3 or 4 minions, walk up and use your W and your empowered auto for a quick AoE clear and back off. It's perfectly fine to take some damage early on, just make it worth the gold. You lack priority early. Without a clear plan early, you might find yourself conflicted between trying to help your jungler that's been invaded and sacrificing 2 to 3 minion waves. Take into account whether you have an aggressive or passive jungler before the game starts. If they're aggressive, try to even out the wave or even push it in. Anytime they invade, you'll be the first to join the fight. If they're passive, you should still try to thin out the wave, but try to freeze it just outside your tower. This won't always be an option against some fast pushing champions. It's generally okay to sacrifice 3 or 4 minions if it means you can effectively help your jungler in an early skirmish, just make sure you're level 3. Other times, it's simply best to ping your jungler back and forfeit any early scuttle or camp fights in order to not fall behind too much. Lacks escapes. It's important to find out which side the enemy jungler started and then ward accordingly. This is especially important if you decide to push the wave. Once a jungler is within a certain range, you'll have no escapes. Aim toward the opposite side the enemy jungler started. Within the first 2 to 3 minutes, stay towards the opposite side the enemy jungler started in lane, just in case the jungler attempts a level 2 gank. When you're being ganked, try to utilize minions, camps over walls, and even enemy champs as E-dash targets. You might just buy enough time to allow for your jungler to collapse, or simply waste a chunk of time before you inevitably die. Must know limits. This ties in with the last weakness. Once you commit to an all-in, it's either kill or be killed. Knowing your limits comes down to experience. Power spikes, items, enemy abilities are just a few factors to consider. You'll also have to figure out whether an enemy is baiting you, as they can sometimes purposely absorb your Q to bait you in while their jungler is waiting nearby. If you ever have doubt, sometimes it's worth going all in if you know you can kill the target and then possibly escape from the other enemy coming in. Going for a 1-for-1 isn't a bad idea, especially if the target is worth a shutdown. Become efficient at estimating your damage. Throw out a Q, and if it does more than 20% of the enemy's HP, there's a good chance you have enough damage to full combo them. Relying on landing Q. Although Diana only has one skill shot, landing Q not only outputs important damage, it allows you to reset your E. Practice her unique curve skill shot with indicators a few times and it will quickly become muscle memory. A solid tip is to utilize the tip of Q, as this circle AoE will increase your chances of landing Q instead of relying on the curved part, as enemies can sometimes walk forward and completely dodge your Q. Against mobile enemies, it might be better for them to use their dash or blink before throwing out your Q. "99% of this guide applies to Diana regardless of the role, but let's mention specific tips for 2 other roles so you can adapt. I'll even cover some pros and cons you can consider. Top lane. Tips. Conqueror is way more viable here, as trades are generally longer and you'll be in melee range. Electrocute is still effective against squishy tops. Against ranged champions, play it similarly to mid lane. Play passive until level 3, then look for trade combos. Unless you have vision, do your best to freeze lanes close to your tower, since you have no escapes, especially in this longer lane. TP should be taken if you aren't confident against your laner, otherwise take Ignite for early pressure. At level 6, look for TP flanks in the bot lane. Aiming to come from behind is best. Plays like this can instantly win you fights and then help you take objectives like towers and early dragons. Remember to abuse the split pushing strategies mentioned in gameplay. Help take the Rift Herald when you can, as you do plenty of consistent damage. Let's cover some quick pros and cons. Advantages. She can fill an AP void. If your team needs AP, then Diana top will make up for that weakness. Enemies aren't experienced playing against Diana because she's rarely picked up. This will leave enemies unsure and surprised when you start going for those trade combos. You will rarely be up against ranged tops compared to mid, so farming is generally safer, especially with your W shield to absorb any damage. She's great at receiving ganks, especially after level 6. Although she has no CC before level 6, you'll still have 2 long range gap closes from your E, allowing you to stick to the target and output damage consistently. Disadvantages. Your team may lack a tank. Since top lane is usually the designated tank role, it might leave your team lacking in tankiness. Diana can still make up for that tankiness with her W shield, and items like Zhonyas and Banshees can provide some tanky stats. Perhaps wait for your jungler or support to pick a tanky champ first, but it is solo queue, so don't really let that stop you if you just really want to play Diana top. Weak early game. Just like mid lane, you'll have the same lackluster early game weaknesses. Just remember it will all be worth it with your power spikes later on, so play as patiently as possible. Aggressive top laners. Against those aggressive early game top laners, it's extremely important you try to freeze your wave next to your tower, or risk being zoned from CS and even worse, experience. Jungler. Since this is a mid-focus guide, I can't go through too many jungle specifics, but I'll quickly cover some tips to help you get started and one jungle route. Here are some quick tips regardless of which side you start. Start W to deal damage with the orbs and absorb damage with your shield. Take Q at level 2. Remember to hit as many enemies as possible with Q when taking camps that have multiple monsters like raptors, golems and wolves. You'll want to keep your attack speed passive activated, so try to rotate spells just as your passive is about to time out. Take E at level 3 and you'll be able to save time by Q and then E dashing over walls. Remember Q provides vision, so warding won't be necessary. You can also use these wall jumps as escapes whenever you're in danger from an invade. Diana actually has some decent escapes in the jungle compared to mid lane. This is why I would almost never suggest putting your E on cooldown, since it doesn't really provide that much damage and it will leave you with at least one escape mechanism. A full clear on the bot side start. Start with Ward Trinket and place it around 1 minute while recalling. Then pick up Red Trinket. This ward can reveal whether the enemy jungler is deciding to invade your red. If the enemy is planning on invading your red, just move towards their red and proceed clearing. An example route would be to start blue where your bot side can help, then kill Gromp, which will restore HP and mana, then take out wolves. Go for raptors next, then red, and finish with Gromp. If you're ever scared about the enemy coming, you can secure your red first, then raptors and golems. This will give you a full clear. How you play the Rift Scuttle fight depends on the enemy jungler and mid, as well as your laner. If you don't plan on contesting, make your way to the other Rift Scuttle and secure at least one of them. Be on the lookout for gank opportunities, as well as waves that are crashing on a tower if your laner has decided to back early or has died. All gold and experience is important to get you to that level 6 power spike. Some advantages. Jungle clear. Her clear is pretty good, with plenty of consistent and AoE damage, and her W shield keeps her quite healthy. Securing objectives. She has a great combo to secure and steal epic monsters with Smite. A simple QEW Smite can outspite most other jungle combos. Ganking. Her E-dash distance makes it great to gap close during ganks, especially if your laner has some CC. At level 6 your kill threat is insane with the CC from your ultimate. Some disadvantages. The early weak game. Diana lacks any real pressure until level 6. Most aggressive junglers will be able to 1v1 you and farming junglers will outclear you. Lacking CC pre-6. Unless you have laners with solid CC, you will struggle to pull off ganks, especially against mobile champions. Invades. Diana is vulnerable to invade against early junglers, and unless you have a few plans ready, it can leave you behind. It's okay to forfeit some camps if it means you can stay alive and move on to other areas to farm. Just like mid lane, patience is important in order to reach your level 6 power spike. If you've made it this far, I want to say thanks for watching. I'll be streaming quite soon, and if you enjoy these guides, I'm sure you'll enjoy the streams, as I'll have the same type of commentary, focusing on mindset and decision making. I'll also be able to interact with you guys, making it much easier to answer any questions you have while on your ranked journey, or simply come past and chill while you take a break from playing League yourself. I'll still be focused on making guides when I decide to stream. I'll upload an update video to let you guys know when and the schedule. Since I'll be making more videos per month, let me know what champion you want to see next. I'm motivated to test and try different champions, so if there's a certain champ you want to see next, there's a good chance I'll be making a guide on them. Check out the other ultimate guides on Nico and Silas, which were over 3.5 hours long, or even my Kiana guide from last season. And that's it. Thanks again, and I'll see you guys in the next video.